I am not trying to sell you anything. This video is not sponsored by any company or product. I'm making this video and sharing this information because for more than 20 years, I dealt with a plethora of symptoms that none of my doctors could piece together and figure out. Eventually, I discovered there was something incredibly simple that none of them ever thought to test. So I want to walk you through what happened to me because if anyone watching this video has been dealing with the same kinds of symptoms and problems that I dealt with, I'm hoping I can help you find answers faster than I did. When I was 16, my hair started to shed. I also started to experience unexplained depression, which my parents wrote off as typical teenage angst, but it appeared out of nowhere. I didn't tell anyone about it, so there was no diagnosis at this point in my life. However, there probably should have been because later in my early to mid 20s, things started to escalate. I started dealing with unexplained weight gain. I started having even worsening depression, and I started to experience random bouts of vertigo. I was an extremely active person. That all changed when the vertigo started because I never knew when it was going to hit, right? You don't want to be climbing a mesa and have a random bout of vertigo and fall off the mesa. It was just, I never felt safe in my body anymore. Around that time, and maybe because of that, my depression became severe enough that I actually attempted to harm myself for the first time. This is around the time that my depression was formally diagnosed, was in my late 20s. And then I started to experience the night sweats, the hot flashes. My fatigue started getting worse. It started getting even harder to go do things. I started having even more weight gain. I went to my OBGYN and she diagnosed me with premature perimenopause at the age of 28 years old. I was placed on hormone replacement therapy by my OBGYN, but that actually severely worsened my depression. So she immediately took me off of the hormones. But then I started having issues with heart palpitations, anxiety symptoms, intense emotional reactions to the smallest thing, catastrophic thinking all the time. What is the worst case scenario in this situation that could possibly happen? Then in my mid 30s, a new group of problems appeared. I started having severe flank pain in my right back side. There was blood in my urine. I had severe extreme fatigue. And I knew it was my kidney. I knew I had a urinary tract infection, and I knew it was probably working its way to a kidney infection. And so I went to the doctor and was like, I know what the problem is. So he put me on a round of antibiotics, and it didn't work. He put me on another round of antibiotics, and that didn't work. And he put me on another round of something different, and that didn't work. 5 different kinds of antibiotics later, he's convinced that I am a hypochondriac. But I finally get put on a round of antibiotics that is apparently so freaking strong. During this time of trying to figure out like all the different potential problems, because the flank pain never went away, even after the urinary tract infection cleared up, I went through multiple MRIs. I had an ultrasound done on my kidneys. I had multiple rounds of blood work, obviously multiple urinalysis tests. And then he eventually sent me for a HIDA scan and determined that my gallbladder needed to be removed, which 2 doctors since then have said it didn't. But yeah, I had a full-blown surgery and thousands of dollars, by the way, in copays. And eventually, when nothing worked, even removing my gallbladder didn't fix the flank pain, which obviously, why would it? He just said, well, it's musculoskeletal. You're in your 30s. Welcome to aging, and sent me on my way. That was that. Like, he wasn't going to deal with me anymore. He was done. So I went home feeling completely defeated and lost and confused. Is it all in my head? Is it psychosomatic? Am I really experiencing these symptoms? Am I a hypochondriac? Like, I started doubting myself because of this one really horrible doctor. Um, and then I started having the neurological symptoms. The vertigo attacks started getting worse. At this point, I don't even have to be up high. I could be sitting in a chair, playing a video game, looking at my monitor, boom, instant vertigo attack for no apparent reason. I kept feeling like we were having earthquakes. I would have these random muscle spasms. This is the toes thing. One night I was laying on the couch just looking at the TV, and the second toe started to cross over all by itself behind my big toe. Other times I'd be sitting in my chair and all of a sudden my right arm would just go whoop. Then I also started to experience this weird smell of burning kerosene. We even called the HVAC company out to do an inspection. It would come and go. I mean, the first time that happened, I smelled it for like 3 straight months. And let me tell you, smelling this overwhelming, powerful smell to where you can't smell the food you're eating, it's exhausting and so irritating. You wouldn't think it would get to you, but it does. And then it just went away. Extreme brain fog. All of a sudden, I couldn't remember basic simple things. I would forget basic simple words. I would lose my train of thought. I would feel like everything was just underwater and I couldn't think straight. I would have like word substitution problems and word salad problems and memory problems. Like I said, I would forget words. Just I'd be talking and I'd know what I was going to say, and then just boom, a word would just disappear out of my head and I couldn't remember. I stopped being active because I no longer trusted my body. And then I stopped socializing because I no longer trusted my brain. And I had also stopped trusting my emotions because of these random anxiety attacks that would lead to just ugly crying for no reason. And I'm like, if I do this in front of people, they're going to think I'm insane. So the fatigue also became extreme during this time to the point where I wasn't just feeling run down and tired and didn't have energy. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you don't have spoons." And she explained spoon theory. And I was like, that makes sense. It's emotional mana. It became to the point where I couldn't stay awake on a daily basis. I would just be sitting in my chair and out of nowhere, like I'd be good. I'd get up, I'd wake up, I'd have energy, I'd be like, I'm awake, I slept good, I had a good night's sleep, I'd go about my day, I'd sit down and I'd start doing something and it'd be like, oh my God, crushing fatigue and asleep. That fast. I'd be like, wow, this is also really, really, really terrifying. Now, I went to a doctor. Obviously, I'm like, look, this is not musculoskeletal. This is a problem. I'm having heart palpitations. I'm having anxiety attacks. I'm having shortness of breath. I can't wash the dishes without breaking into a profuse sweat, turning bright red, and feeling like I'm going to throw up or pass out or both. And having to lay down on the floor and count my breathing to calm myself down. I can't live like this. I can't function. I can't have a job like this. I can't do housework like this. I cannot sit in a chair for 16 hours a day and sleep in a bed for 8 hours a day and do absolutely nothing to contribute to society or at the very least my household. At this point, my husband was picking up all of my slack. And I knew, even though he said he wasn't, that at some point he was going to start resenting me for it. And I had to find a solution. So I go to my doctor and I tell her all of these things, and she says, well, it could be multiple sclerosis, it could be PCOS, it could be ALS, it could be endometriosis, it could be cancer. Um, there was something else. Oh, she thought I might be having strokes. Atrial fibrillation, that was the other one. She thought it might be atrial fibrillation or AFib. Because of the heart palpitations and the turning red and the sweating and all of that from really minor physical exertion. So, right there that day, she had a nurse come in or a technician come in and give me an EKG on my heart. And the technician gives me the EKG, stands up, and leaves the room without saying anything. She comes back and she says, the doctor would like me to do the EKG again. She takes all the nodes off, puts brand new nodes on the machine, sticks them all over me, and does another EKG, gets up and leaves the room. She comes back in, she says, okay, we're done, takes all the nodes off of me. I sit down in the chair, and the doctor comes in and says, there's something, and I'm going to do my best impression on my doctor. There's something with your, some, mm, there's something with your EKGs, but I can't quite, I don't know. That's exactly what she did. So apparently there was something wrong with my EKGs, which is why she had the technician do a second one, but she had no fucking clue what it was. So then she sends me to see a neurologist and a cardiologist, two referrals on the same day. The cardiologist puts me through a stress test to find out if there's something wrong with my heart and also does an ultrasound on my heart. This was my second ultrasound. And then the neurologist does two different neuro exams, one where she stuck me with needles and one where she electrocuted me with a very mild and not unpleasant shock. And she also had me do a 24-hour EEG to read my brain waves. No diagnosis came from any of those tests. Oh, also the doctor sent me to get over a dozen MRIs. She actually MRI'd my spine all the way from my ass to my brain, with and without contrast. I literally had over a dozen MRIs in one session. I was in that MRI tube for like 3 hours. It was nice actually because I just fell asleep. But what they determined from that was that I had arthritis, but that was it. They couldn't determine anything else. Now, part of that is because we never did get the results from the cardiologist or the neurologist because of an insurance technical problem. So I was able to get the MRI results. I actually went down to the testing lab, got them to print the results, paid for it out of my own pocket, and took them to my doctor so that she could look at them. Which by then my doctor had changed and I had a new doctor. He looked at them and was like, "You have arthritis." But that was pretty much all we got. I never found out, do I have MS? Do I have ALS? Do I have PCOS? Do I have endometriosis? The only thing they ruled out was cancer. They were like, you do not have cancer, because they also did blood work. And I was like, yay, I don't have cancer. That's good to know. So then COVID hit and I was considered it at risk. So I was told not to go to the doctor. I was doing telehealth visits where they couldn't really do any tests. They were basically just checking in to make sure I wasn't actually dying. And during COVID, the extreme fatigue got worse. The hair thinning got worse to the point where then I would look at this. I would look at myself in the mirror and I would realize I could see my scalp all the way back to like here in the mirror. So I tried Viviscal, which at the time I could find it at Walmart, and I was on it for about a year and a half. And I don't really, I don't want to say that I noticed results, but it seemed like an easy solution and I was just going to give it time. But then Walmart stopped carrying it, and then I couldn't find it on Amazon, and then the only place I could find it was on the Viviscal website, and I signed up for their little subscription because that was apparently the only way you could do it. And then I had more than I needed because they were sending it to me more often than they were supposed to, and I couldn't cancel because every time I would call the number on their website, it would send me to some kind of like 800 number ad loop, and it was a whole mess. I ended up having to dispute charges on my credit card with my credit card company just to get them to stop charging me for the subscription. They weren't even sending me the product anymore. They were just charging me. I've heard they've gotten better since then, but I'm not even risking it. So then I saw TikTok ads for Spoiled Child. You've probably seen that video because most of you followed me because of that video where I'm like, you guys tell me, is it working? And you were all like, we want to see a side by side. And I've gotten better at editing since then, so we will be doing that in this video. But I did it for 3 months because that's what it said in the ad. Because you guys were all over the board between whether or not it was working on, like, you all agreed my skin looked great, but none of you could really agree on whether or not it was working on my hair. I gave like 3 different AIs. It was Gemini, it was ChatGPT, and it was Grok. I gave them my before and after picture, still photo of me going like that, and said, "Is it working?" And all 3 of them were like, "No, not really. Your part got bigger." And I was like, "Shit." So I stopped using Spoiled Child, and quite honestly, the ads that I've seen from them are extremely questionable, and I would not recommend you use them either. After that, I decided to try Mary Ruth's liquid multivitamin because hello, TikTok gave me another ad. These are really expensive, you guys. However, I felt a difference. Not in my hair, but in my body. And I was like, something in here is making me feel good, but I can't afford $70 a month. And by the way, the bottles did not last a month. I got 3 bottles. They were gone in 2.5 months. Every single bottle ran out before the month was up. So I went to ChatGPT and I was like, I need help. I like this product, but I don't want to spend this much money. Is there another product that maybe isn't as well known on TikTok and therefore has a lower price tag that has all the same stuff? And ChatGPT was like, all the same stuff in one product? No, but have you ever had your ferritin tested? My what now? I've had a lot of blood tests, but that's not ringing any bells. So, ChatGPT says to me, ferritin is a protein that stores iron in your body. And low ferritin can affect oxygen transport, neurological function, sleep quality, hair growth, fatigue levels, and more. Many people can have low ferritin without anemia. Because I was like, dude, I'm not anemic. And chat was like, you don't have to necessarily be anemic. because it can happen without anemia, which is why it often goes unnoticed. Which, by the way, also during this time, I started losing all ability to deal with heat and cold in my hands. I couldn't wash the dishes anymore, not just because of the sweating and stuff, but because the water was too hot. I couldn't touch it. And my husband would be like, it's not even that hot. He had to start taking everything out of the microwave for me because I couldn't take anything out of the microwave without pot holders. If I got a pint of ice cream, I had to wrap it in this little towel here. I would have to take the towel, double it, wrap it around the pint of ice cream, and then hold the ice cream in a towel because it was too cold to hold in my hand. I couldn't get iced or blended Dutch Bros drinks anymore because they were too cold. I couldn't hold them. Um, Also my feet. My feet were super sensitive to heat and cold, but also just super sensitive in general. Like the dogs would step on my foot and it would be like, oh my God, the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. I've had kidney stones, guys. Kidney stones. The dog stepping on my foot was worse than a kidney stone. Uh, I would bruise over nothing. Like, I woke up one morning and I had like 15 bruises on this arm. I'll see if I can find the picture because I did take one, and if I can, I'll put it in the video. 15 bruises on this arm. They weren't there when I went to bed, and I have no idea where they came from. They just showed up in the middle of the night. Um, and things would take forever to heal. I got a little scratch on my foot from one of the dogs that took over 3 months, and I still had the scab where the scratch was. It was not healing. So those weren't on my bullet point because I'd completely forgotten them until now. But yeah, those were other issues. And someone watching this is going to go, hello, that's anemia. But as far as all of my blood tests go, I had had CBCs and no one had ever said you're anemic. So that's why I was like, I'm not anemic. But yeah, my body was screaming anemia, but my blood results were not yet. So I said to ChatGPT, listen, I would love to get my ferritin tested, but at this point I've had to quit my job. I am unemployed and have been for years, and I no longer have insurance because my husband's insurance is through the VA and they won't insure me. It's not through his work where he could just add me to his plan. And ChatGPT said that's fine because you can actually get your own tests done. Now, I don't know if this is a Nevada state thing or if this is depends on where you live. I don't know. But Quest Diagnostics, which is a national company, but if you don't have one in your area, check for some other diagnostics company that does blood work. Go to their website and find out if you can order your own tests without a doctor, because turns out I could. So I ordered a ferritin and a CBC test, and then ChatGPT also recommended that I order a thyroid test just to be thorough. The ferritin and the CBC together cost less than $100, which I can squeeze that. We're not broke, I just don't have insurance, right? I mean, a copay for one doctor's visit would be $50, and then I would have to go back, so that's another $50 right then and there. So screw the doctor, I'll just go buy the tests. So I scheduled the tests online. That same day, I was in and out of the lab in less than 10 minutes, and I got the email with my results in it the next day. Okay, so honestly, out of all of the tests and blood work and exams and everything that doctors sent me to do, this was the easiest. And I didn't even need a referral, which blew my mind. So my first test results come back, and I don't know how to read test results. I'm not a doctor. You know who does, though? And I know you guys are going to be like, you shouldn't Google your symptoms. Well, I didn't. Okay. I just went to ChatGPT and said, here's my test results. What do they mean? And ChatGPT interpreted for them. And am I a paid spokesperson for ChatGPT? No, I am not. All right. Use whatever AI you like. Don't use an AI, but it'll be a lot easier if you do. I don't care. That's just what I did. So the official, unofficial ChatGPT diagnosis was, oh yeah, you definitely have low ferritin and low iron, and your CBC and CMP is all over the floor. So ChatGPT says, based on this, you really need to take some iron. You still don't have to go to a doctor to get a prescription. You can just buy it over the counter. So, um, what I didn't know, ChatGPT is like, make sure you don't take your iron with calcium, dairy, magnesium, coffee, tea, or anything else that has tannins in it. And I'm like, what now? No one had ever told me this. Okay. And my mom worked in the medical field. Like, I knew a lot about what not to take with what and what to take with what. This was news to me. So at 8 o'clock, take your magnesium, your calcium, whatever else you're taking over here, 8 o'clock. Don't eat or drink anything but water until 10 o'clock, and then take your iron and take it with some vitamin C, which you can drink a glass of orange juice or a glass of cranberry juice, or you can just eat a vitamin C tablet, which is what I do because they're delicious. And then take your iron and go to bed. That way, you're not having any of those harmful things that block iron absorption for 2 hours prior to taking your iron, and you're not having anything for more than 2 hours after taking your iron. And so the iron is going to absorb. And if you're not doing that, if you're taking iron, but you're not monitoring what you're taking it with and when you're taking it, and whether or not you're eating food that has calcium, because that's the thing, like it's not just don't take calcium, it's don't eat or drink anything with calcium. So if you were going to do it with orange juice, make sure it's not the orange juice that has added calcium in it. It's no dairy because why? Dairy has calcium in it. It's no magnesium. And it's coffee and tea are just two of the things with tannins. Wine is another one that made me really, really sad because I love a glass of wine before bed, but I stopped doing it because I really wanted to get better. And wine was not going to make me better. It was just going to make me feel better temporarily. So this is blowing my mind because my sister has actually been on iron supplements prescribed by her doctor. In fact, she's been on iron supplements prescribed by her doctor for so long, and her numbers are not getting better, that they are now injecting her with iron, which is causing a whole host of side effects that are just making her not feel good at all. And so I call her up and I'm like, "Hey, did you know you're not supposed to take your iron with magnesium, calcium, dairy, tannins, and that you should be taking it with vitamin C?" And she was like, "What now?" Her doctor never told her this. She was on a prescribed iron supplement from her doctor, and he never told her any of this. The pharmacist never told her this when she went to pick up her iron prescriptions multiple times. And now that they haven't seen her iron improving, they're giving her injections, and they still have not told her, by the way, what are you taking your iron with? I find out in this phone call that she is actually diagnosed with cellulitis in her leg, which is not related to the low iron, but she has been given round after round after round after round after round of antibiotics, and this infection is not going away. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so too. She's on a PIC line, you guys. If you don't know what that is basically an IV line that you wear home with you. You have to wear a needle in your body at all times because she's not getting better. Low iron and low ferritin can actually make antibiotics less effective. So start taking your iron correctly. So she does. Y'all, like this is right when I start taking iron. She starts doing the same thing at around the same time I do. Within like a month, they're removing her PIC line because the antibiotics are finally starting to work and her leg is finally starting to get better and the infection is finally clearing up. So I have now been doing the correct iron supplements for 3 months. Is that long enough to have gorgeous Barbie hair? No, I know that. In fact, it's not even enough to be in the hair regrowth range yet. But I went and got another round of tests. I went and did my own CBC and my own ferritin test again. I did not redo the thyroid test the second time because the results were just fine the first time. There was no reason to redo it. But I did redo the CBC and I did redo the iron, and here's the results. Now I'm doing the side by side that you guys all wanted from my hair because right now there's really nothing to show with my hair, but from my irons perspective, you can clearly see everything that was too high went down and everything that was too low went up. Everything on these two charts is headed closer to normal on the right side from where it was on the left side. Some of it is still in the red. I acknowledge that, but it's improved. And when I say I started crying when I saw these results, I'm not exaggerating. I was bawling because I have spent more than half of my life. Take that in for a second. This has been going on for more than half of my life. This started when I was 16. I am now 43 years old. I was diagnosed with premature perimenopause. That was the first diagnoses that really started to affect my quality of life. Depression came even before that. I am 43 years old. I am still having hot flashes. I'm still having night sweats before I found out about iron. My whole adult life has been torment, hell, confusion, doctors, tests, and hopelessness. I'm trying really hard not to get emotional because I really hate it when people cry in videos. This is literally, I spent most of that time being told, nope, we can't find anything wrong with you. I had doctors practically throwing pain pills at me. I don't take pain medication. When I had my gallbladder removed, they prescribed me Lortabs. I took a half a Lortab and was like, not for me. Didn't take the rest of them. I heard, nope, everything looks good. We can't find anything wrong from so many doctors on so many occasions after so many tests that I questioned my own sanity. I'm not joking. I really did. I went to a psychiatrist and was like, am I nuts? And she's like, nope, can't find anything wrong other than depression and anxiety and PTSD. And now I question whether the PTSD is a result of the anxiety, which is a result of the ferritin indirectly. Here's the thing, like a lot of these symptoms, they're not direct results of ferritin. They're results of things that resulted of the ferritin. Like the ferritin can cause the vertigo. The vertigo caused me to lose trust in my body. And that caused me to be less active. And that caused weight gain. And that exacerbated the existing depression. And the ferritin can cause that fluttering feeling, the irregular heartbeat feeling, that feeling that was diagnosed as anxiety created fear of anxiety attacks. And that fear, like I had an anxiety attack once at a gas station while pumping gas, which then made me afraid to go to gas stations because I didn't want to have another anxiety attack. This is a classic problem with anxiety is you associate where you have an attack or why you have an attack or when you have an attack with the attack, and then that becomes a trigger and you avoid it. And I became a shut-in. I have spent the last 10 years of my life living inside these walls you see around me. Again, I'm not trying to sell you guys on anything. I'm not trying to sell you on ChatGPT. In fact, like I said, use any AI you want if you need help. Don't use an AI if you don't. I don't care. But I'm just telling you what happened with me, what helped me. And I want you to know that if you are experiencing any of these things, the unexplained fatigue, the hair loss, the neurological problems, the sleep issues, any of this, the heart palpitations, the sweat, the exhaustion, the nausea from trying to do just the simplest tasks. Just ask yourself one question. Have you ever had your ferritin tested? Because that one simple question has literally changed my life. Now, when this started, I wanted to know beyond just the numbers on a sheet of paper, because the numbers on the sheet of paper, on the test results, they're powerful in and of themselves. But is this really going to be an improvement to my quality of life? Is my quality of life really going to get better? So I had ChatGPT create a quality of life questionnaire, and I was as honest and blunt and unguarded as I could because what's the point in lying? This is for my own personal information. And then I took it again 3 months later after I got my second round of tests and could see that on paper things are definitely getting better. But are they really getting better? I feel like they're getting better, but let's do the quality of life questionnaire. Side by side results. Here you go. I really hope someone can be helped by this because if even one person finds an answer that no one has been able to help them find, then it's worth all of the time and effort and editing I'm about to put into this video.